Today I'll be making lazy lasagna, so lazy version of lasagna. I've started off by putting some vegetable oil in the pot. Entirely up to you what sort of oil you use. I've got one medium-sized onion. I'll cook that off in the pot, so it's just an easy way of doing lasagna. So I'll brown this onion and then I'll go in and I'll start adding my mince. Now that I've got a bit of colour to my onion, I'll add a tablespoon of salt. You can always add the more salt later when it starts to boil. And then I'm using, you can use pepper, but I'm using like a teaspoon worth of the Middle Eastern mixed spice. The 7 spice is always a lot milder than the actual cracked pepper that you use, but it's entirely up to you which one you actually use. At this stage I'm adding 500 grams of mince, and I'll cook this off until it's all separated and it's browned. I personally like when my kids have extra veggies in their meals because they're at the stage where they don't eat it or don't like it as much. So what I do is, so now that we've browned the onion and the mince, any mince that you like, beef, lamb, absolutely anything, I add vegetables. So I'm adding 1 carrot. You can leave this out. You can add peas if you like. That's just 1 carrot, and I've got probably about 2 tablespoons of red capsicum. Like I said, you can leave these out. I'll just let them cook off for a little bit longer. You can see when I mix this, it's just cooked off a tiny bit. It will keep cooking in the broth that you make, so before it thickens up. You can see it's stuck on the bottom. Just remember, that's all flavour. At this stage I'll add a tablespoon of dried basil and a large tablespoon of the tomato paste, heaped tablespoon. I am doing a large amount. Mix it up to incorporate the paste. I will now add 1.5 litres of water. I've used kettle water. You can use cold water. Entirely up to you. I've got 1.5 litres at the moment, and if I need to add more, I will. But at this stage, this should be fine for now. So what I'll do is I'll let it come to the boil. And the reason for doing that is so the veggies soften up slightly before I put the lasagna sheets in. So all I've done is I've got 250 grams of lasagna, dried lasagna sheets, which I've cut up just in my hand into rough pieces. So you can do it as fine as you want, or any shape or size that you feel like. And then add it to the liquid if you need to re-add. So don't forget that it will drink most of the liquid, and you don't really want it to be such a very dry dish. You do want slight moist to it. So I'll wait for it to come to the boil before I add the pasta sheets. Once it's come to the boil, I tasted the liquid to see if it needs more salt or if it needs more water, if it's thickened up too much. So this is at a good texture because we're adding the pasta sheets. It will thicken up the liquid. So once you're the lasagna sheets in, so all I've done is I've got 250 grams of lasagna, dried lasagna sheets, which I've cut up just in my hand into rough pieces. So you can do it as fine as you want, or any shape or size that you feel like, and then add it to the liquid if you need to re-add. So don't forget that it will drink most of the liquid, and you don't really want it to be such a very dry dish. You do want slight moist to it. So I'll wait for it to come to the boil before I add the pasta sheets. Once it's come to the boil, I tasted the liquid to see if it needs more salt, or if it needs more water, if it's thickened up too much. So this is at a good texture because we're adding the pasta sheets. It will thicken up the liquid. So once you've put the liquid in, make sure you scrape the bottom off. That is all flavor that comes out in the dish. Now, one thing to remember, if you have someone that has tomato paste or any kind of tomato dish and has heartburn from it, what you can do, so that's why I use tomato paste. You have less risk of getting heartburn with tomato paste than the actual mixed jars or the passata. But all you need to do with all types of red sauce dishes is just add a tablespoon, not a heaped tablespoon, just a normal standard tablespoon of sugar, and you will see that it actually eliminates a lot of the heartburn. So the pasta sheets can now go in, the lasagna sheets, not pasta sheets. And then I'll just mix it up a little bit, just to break it up a bit. You don't really want it to set together. That to me shows that I can actually leave it now to let it come to the boil again. And if you do need to add extra at this stage when it's boiling, if you do need to add extra water, make sure it's boiled water from the kettle. You don't actually want to put in cold water. It just delays the whole dish. Keep in mind, you don't want to use, it's really bubbling now, you don't want to use cold water because then you cool down the dish. Not only slow down the whole process of getting the dish ready. This is a quick version. Nothing beats the original version. It's definitely a favorite in my household, but this is a quick version if you're in a hurry and you haven't got a chance to lay the sheets and put it in the oven. What I did was I continuously tasted the salt. Salt was perfect. It all depends on your pasta sheets if you need to add more water. I did have to add 200 mils of extra water from my kettle, but this is now cooked. So you need to keep in mind that you do want a bit of liquid in there, because when you turn off the stove and put the lid on it to leave it before you serve, if you're not serving it straight away, the liquid will be actually absorbed by the actual pasta, the lasagna sheets or pasta sheets if you're doing pasta instead. It will absorb it, so you just have to be careful. So my sauce has thickened up because of my lasagna sheets. If yours hasn't thickened up or you've accidentally put a bit too much water, which is still fine, all you do is add a tablespoon to a separate, like a little plate, a deep plate. So you put like a tablespoon of plain flour with a tiny bit of water until you mix it, until it's kind of a slightly watery texture, so it doesn't actually clump up in your dish, and add it to your pot. So now at this stage I'm actually going to turn off the stove, and this is ready to be served. Or you can put the lid on it and wait until a lot of the liquid has been taken up by the actual sheets themselves. But you can see how it's actually fully cooked off. In my household, there's no such thing as al dente. I know that pasta should not be completely cooked, but this is the way we like it, and we like to make this dish. So once you're happy with the actual lasagna sheets themselves, you can turn off the stove and you're ready to serve.